I found my wife's affair by accident, then destroyed her on purpose. I didn't throw the tablet across the room because that would have been too emotional, too reckless, and honestly beneath someone who builds financial empires for a living. Instead, I stood there at 5:43 in the morning in my home office in downtown Boston, staring at my wife's iPad that she'd left charging overnight, reading what felt like the blueprint for my own betrayal while she slept peacefully upstairs in our bed. The email from someone named Tyler was still open. Last night at the Ritz was incredible. I've never felt this alive. She doesn't suspect anything, does she? You're playing this perfectly. Can't wait until we can stop hiding and just be together. The apartment I'm looking at has that view you love. That woman upstairs was me. The apartment fund she was building came from joint accounts I'd been filling for 8 years. And the man reading this wasn't some emotional wreck about to fall apart. He was Daniel Cross, 39 years old, founder and CEO of Cross Capital Advisors, the guy who'd turned a $50,000 inheritance into a $40 million portfolio by finding inefficiencies in systems and exploiting them without mercy. The irony that the biggest liability in my life had been sleeping next to me every night wasn't lost on me. I took 3 screenshots, uploaded them to an encrypted cloud account, placed the tablet back exactly where I'd found it, and went for my usual 6 a.m. run through Back Bay, while my brain started running calculations on asset protection, evidence gathering, and the complete dismantling of Vanessa Cross, the woman who thought she could steal my money, my trust, and my future without consequences. When Vanessa walked into the kitchen 40 minutes later in her silk pajamas, looking like something from a magazine spread, I was already dressed for work, reading the Wall Street Journal, drinking my espresso. She kissed my cheek and started talking about her morning yoga class while I nodded along, already mentally inventorying our assets, reviewing the post-nup agreement I'd insisted on after my business took off, and the forensic accountant I'd be calling as soon as I got to my office. She had no idea that the man pouring her coffee and asking about her day had already started the timer on her complete destruction. That every smile, every touch, every "I love you" coming out of her mouth was being filed away not as affection, but as evidence of premeditation and fraud. I watched her drive away in the Range Rover I'd bought her for her birthday, and the moment those gates closed, I didn't break down or punch walls or do any of that weakness you see in movies. I went to war. My office is on the 32nd floor of a glass tower in the financial district, with a view that reminds me every morning why I don't lose. I locked my door, turned off my phone, and made 4 calls that would change everything. First to Marcus Chen, my head of security and former FBI cybercrime specialist. Second to Patricia Dunn, my personal attorney who'd negotiated billion-dollar deals and never lost a case that mattered. Third to Stephen Walsh, forensic accountant who could find hidden money in ways that would make the IRS jealous. And fourth to James Reeves, a private investigator who'd worked celebrity divorces and political scandals and knew exactly how to document infidelity in ways that destroyed people in court. I didn't tell any of them I was hurt or betrayed. That's not how you win. You win by treating it like a hostile corporate takeover, where emotions are liabilities and cold calculation is the only thing that matters. By 2 p.m., I had a complete financial x-ray of my marriage spread across 3 monitors in my office. And it was worse than I imagined. This wasn't just an affair. This was systematic theft. Vanessa hadn't just been sleeping with Tyler Morrison, a 32-year-old personal trainer she'd met at Equinox, who lived off wealthy women while pretending to be some fitness entrepreneur. She'd been funding his entire existence with our money. The bank statements told a story. Luxury hotel charges $600 a night, dinners at L'Espalier for $500 a meal, a Tag Heuer watch for $12,000 that she said was for her brother, and most damning, a separate checking account she'd opened in her maiden name with $67,000 transferred from our joint savings over 11 months. She'd called it Future Fund in her notes. She'd been building her exit strategy, planning to leave me once she'd stockpiled enough of my money to fund her new life with a man who'd probably never earned 6 figures in his life. The emails Marcus recovered from her cloud backup were even more revealing. Conversations where she called me emotionally unavailable but financially reliable, and told Tyler about how I was always working and wouldn't notice if I disappeared for days. How she deserved passion after being trapped with a workaholic for 8 years. Every message was her betting I was too busy building wealth to notice she was stealing it. That fundamental miscalculation was going to cost her everything. I felt something cold and pure settle in my chest. Not rage. Clarity. The kind that comes when you realize someone violated not just trust, but the basic terms of a contract. And in my world, contract violations have severe penalties. Marcus came through with something beautiful. Complete access to her text messages, emails, GPS location history, and even photos she deleted from her phone but hadn't purged from cloud storage. I watched her digital life unfold like a crime scene. Every hotel visit, every lunch that was actually a 3-hour session at some boutique hotel in Cambridge, every girls' night that was really her with Tyler pretending she was single. The photos made my jaw tight. Her in lingerie I'd bought her. Him shirtless, showing off the body he maintained with her money. Both looking stupidly happy in mirrors and hotel rooms, temporary happiness that was about to meet permanent consequences. What really caught my attention was an email chain about Tyler's financial problems. His ex-girlfriend had taken him to court for unpaid loans. His gym startup had failed. He was behind on his car payments. He needed to find new revenue streams. That's when the full picture became clear. Tyler wasn't just sleeping with my wife. He was using her as an ATM to cover his disasters. And she was too blinded by abs and attention to see she was being played harder than she was playing me. The scammer getting scammed. I almost laughed. I called Patricia back. Draft divorce papers with the infidelity clause activated from the post-nup. She gets nothing. Not the house, not the cars, not $1 of spousal support. And Patricia, I wanted airtight. No room for negotiation. But winning legally wasn't enough. I wanted total destruction. The kind where your opponent doesn't just lose, but understands exactly how they lost and knows they'll never recover. That's when I decided to reach out to Nicole Morrison, Tyler's wife. Getting a meeting with a pediatric ICU nurse isn't easy, but I made it happen through a hospital board member who owed me a favor. I found myself in a coffee shop in Cambridge at 3 p.m., facing a woman who looked exhausted in that way medical professionals do. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back, wearing scrubs like she'd just finished a 12-hour shift, saving children's lives while her husband destroyed hers. Nicole Morrison was 34, thin in that stress diet way, with tired eyes that had probably stopped believing in fairy tales around the time she realized she'd married a man-child. She looked at me with professional skepticism, and I respected that. I didn't waste time. Placed a folder on the table between our coffee cups. Your husband is having an affair with my wife. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because he's been using money she's stolen from our joint accounts to cover debts he owes you, to pay for a lifestyle he can't afford, and to fund an apartment he's planning to move into once he's drained her resources the way he clearly drained yours. I watched her face as she opened the folder. Saw the progression from surprise to recognition to that cold professional mask that meant she was already calculating her next move. The documents showed Tyler's credit card charges at hotels, restaurants, jewelry stores, all paid with cards Vanessa had opened using money from our accounts. He'd even used some of that money to pay down a loan Nicole had co-signed, meaning my wife had unknowingly paid his debts to his wife. Nicole read through everything twice, her jaw getting tighter with each page. When she looked up, I saw something I recognized in myself. The moment betrayal transforms from emotion into strategy. What do you want from me, Daniel? I gave her the truth. I'm going to destroy Vanessa financially, legally, and socially. You're going to destroy Tyler however you see fit, and we're going to coordinate so they can't warn each other or mount any defense. She extended her hand without hesitation. Her grip was strong enough to seal deals and end lives. We spent the next hour building a timeline, sharing bank records, comparing stories, constructing parallel attacks that would hit both targets simultaneously. Nicole told me something that made everything click. Tyler had done this before, 3 times. Found wealthy women, played them, emptied their accounts, then moved on, when the money dried up or they got suspicious. She'd found evidence of 2 previous affairs, but had stayed because of their daughter, because she'd believed his promises to change, because she'd been stupid enough to give him chances he didn't deserve. But now she was done. "He thinks he's so smart," she said. "He thinks nobody will ever catch on because he's charming and good-looking. He doesn't realize charm stops working when the evidence is overwhelming." We agreed to move in 1 week. That gave me time to finish my evidence collection and her time to secure her daughter and coordinate with her divorce attorney. The next 7 days were psychological warfare at its finest. I had to pretend everything was normal while Vanessa continued her affair and her theft. She came home from her training sessions smelling like hotel soap and lies, made dinner and talked about her fake day at her fake volunteer work. I played along perfectly, asking about her fictional friends and fictional events, all while my phone recorded every word for eventual court proceedings. I even surprised her with flowers on Thursday, expensive roses that made her smile and say I was being so sweet lately. She had no idea every gesture was another entry in the ledger of her betrayal. I watched her text Tyler from our bedroom, heard her laugh at whatever stupid thing he said, saw her apply the perfume I'd bought her before going to meet a friend for lunch on Wednesday. Every moment she thought she was getting away with it made the trap tighter. On Saturday night, she tried to initiate sex, probably covering her tracks or dealing with microscopic guilt. I declined, claiming exhaustion from a merger deal. She shrugged and went to sleep like it didn't matter, like I didn't matter. That's when I knew scorched earth was the only appropriate response. Monday morning, I told her I had meetings in New York and would be gone for 3 days. She tried not to look excited, asking if I needed help packing, offering to drive me to the airport. I could see her calculating. 3 nights without me meant 3 nights with Tyler. 3 nights pretending they were a real couple instead of 2 parasites feeding off my money. I kissed her goodbye at 5 a.m., drove to Logan, then circled back to a hotel in Cambridge where I spent the next 8 hours coordinating the final attack. At 11 a.m., Patricia filed divorce papers at Suffolk County Court with motions to freeze all joint accounts and assets. At 11:15, Stephen's report hit the IRS Fraud Division showing unreported income and suspicious transfers. At 11:30, I sent a carefully worded email to the board of directors at the charity where Vanessa volunteered, including expense reports showing she'd been billing them for hours she'd spent in hotels. And at noon, Nicole filed her own divorce papers with evidence of Tyler's pattern of financial abuse and infidelity. The beauty was the timing. Everything happened simultaneously. They couldn't warn each other or coordinate responses. They were too busy dealing with their own individual crises. I sat in that hotel room watching it unfold through news alerts, text messages from my team, and the pure satisfaction of a perfect plan executing flawlessly. Patricia texted at 12:30 to confirm all accounts were frozen and Vanessa's credit cards were canceled. Marcus confirmed at 1 p.m. that Vanessa had tried to use her card at a restaurant and been declined. At 2 p.m., Nicole sent a photo of Tyler's face when he'd been served papers at his gym. And at 3 p.m., my phone rang. Vanessa. I let it go to voicemail. Listened to her panicked message about cards not working and her mother not answering and something being wrong with her bank access. She sounded confused, scared, like someone whose entire foundation had just cracked. Good. She called 17 more times. I didn't answer, didn't text, didn't give her any information or comfort or indication that I knew anything. Let her spiral. At 5 p.m., I drove home slowly, knowing she'd be there waiting, probably in whatever state of panic she'd worked herself into. I parked in the garage, walked into our house, poured myself scotch, and sat in my study with all the lights off, except dramatic? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. At 5:47, I heard her key in the lock, heard her heels clicking frantically on the marble floor, heard her calling my name in that fake sweet voice she used when she wanted something. She appeared in the doorway of my study wearing a designer dress I'd bought her, diamond earrings I'd given her for Christmas, looking beautiful and poisonous like a snake that had just realized it was defanged. She stopped when she saw me sitting there in the dark. Daniel, thank God. Something's wrong with our accounts. My cards aren't working. The bank says everything's frozen. Did you do something? I took a sip of scotch, let the moment breathe. I did several things, Vanessa. I filed for divorce. I froze our assets. I canceled your credit cards. I contacted the IRS about some interesting transfers you've been making, and I sent some information to your volunteer board about how you've been billing them for hours you spent fucking Tyler Morrison. The color drained from her face so fast it was almost comical. Her hand went to her mouth, phone dropping from her other hand, spinning across the floor like her life. How did you... She started, but I cut her off. Your iPad. You left it charging in my office 2 weeks ago. Open to a very revealing email from Tyler about last night at the Ritz and the apartment you're planning to share. Poor operational security, Vanessa. Amateur mistake. She tried to approach me, hands out like she could touch her way out of this. Daniel, please, let me explain. It's not what you think. We can work through this. I stood up, moved to the window, looked out at the Boston skyline I'd conquered while she'd been planning to abandon it. You stole $67,000 from our joint accounts to fund a secret exit strategy with a man who makes $40,000 a year and has 3 ex-girlfriends he owes money to. You used my credit cards to buy him gifts while telling him I was too stupid to notice. You built an entire second life with my money and my trust while I was busy actually building something real. I turned to face her. I don't need your explanation. I have your emails, your texts, your bank statements, your location history, and about 300 photos you thought you deleted. She started crying then, but they were strategic tears designed to manipulate. Where am I supposed to go? My mom won't talk to me. Tyler. She stopped herself, realizing mentioning his name was probably not smart. What about Tyler? I asked, genuinely curious. Did he answer when you called him today? Did he offer to help when your cards stopped working? Her silence was my answer. Tyler had probably blocked her number the moment things got complicated. Like every parasite, he'd moved on to the next host. Here's what happens now, I said, my voice clinical as a surgeon's. You signed the divorce papers without contest. The postnup we signed 3 years ago when my business took off is very clear about what happens in cases of documented infidelity. You get exactly nothing. Not the house, not the cars, not my retirement accounts, nothing. You can keep personal items you brought into the marriage and whatever's in your name only. Everything else stays with me. That's not fair, she whispered, but there was no conviction in it. I pulled out my phone, airplayed her text messages to the TV in my study. Her and Tyler talking about how I was always working and wouldn't notice, and how I was boring but useful. How she deserved better after settling for financial security. How they were so in love and meant to be together. I let it all play while she stood there shaking. Fair would be you going to prison for fraud, I said. Fair would be me posting all of this to your social media. Fair would be me calling every person in your family and your social circle and showing them exactly who you are. What I'm offering is mercy. Take nothing and leave quietly, or fight me, and I'll destroy whatever reputation you have left. She sank into a chair, shoulders shaking. I'll have nothing. No job, no money, no home. You'll have your freedom, I replied, which is what you wanted all along. The only difference is you thought you'd get it while keeping my money and my house and my name. Now you get it while keeping exactly what you contributed, which was nothing except problems I'm still cleaning up. She spent that night in the guest room. I slept better than I had in months, knowing the source of infection had been identified and quarantined. The next morning, I watched her pack 2 suitcases with clothes and personal items. She tried to take jewelry. I reminded her which pieces I'd bought. She tried to take electronics. I showed her the purchase receipts in my name. Every attempt to grab something that wasn't hers was another small lesson in how completely she'd lost. While she packed, I executed the social destruction phase of my plan. I didn't post anything publicly. That would be crude. Instead, I simply showed up at my private club for our regular poker night. When someone asked where Vanessa was, I paused, looked at my cards, said casually, Vanessa decided that funding a personal trainer's lifestyle was more important than our marriage. Unfortunately for her, she used my money to do it. We're divorcing. 5 seconds. That's all it took. The information spread through Boston's social circles faster than any press release. By the end of the night, my phone had messages from friends and business associates expressing shock and support. Vanessa's phone, once she got service restored, was probably full of silence. Her friends stopped calling. Her yoga class memberships mysteriously became unavailable. Charity boards uninvited her from galas. I'd made her radioactive without a single public accusation. Just simple truth delivered to the right people at the right time. The real satisfaction came 3 days later when Tyler showed up at my office building. Security called up, said some guy was in the lobby demanding to see me. I told them to let him come up. He walked into my office looking like everything he'd believed about himself had been proven wrong. Nicole had cleaned him out. His gym had blacklisted him for sleeping with clients. His social media influencer career had collapsed when Nicole posted evidence of his affairs. He came at me with accusations, saying I'd ruined his life, turned his wife against him, destroyed his business. "You had no business," I said without raising my voice. "You had my wife's stolen money funding a fantasy. Now the money's gone and the fantasy's over." He tried to threaten me. I had security remove him, watched from my window as they escorted him to the street. Another problem solved, another weakness eliminated. The divorce finalized in 6 weeks. Vanessa signed everything Patricia put in front of her. The postnup held up perfectly. She got her car, her personal items, and nothing else. I kept the penthouse, the vacation property, the investment portfolio, and my reputation intact. Nicole got full custody of her daughter, the house, the business, and Tyler got a 3-year restraining order and a warrant for unpaid child support. Vanessa moved to New York, according to mutual acquaintances, working in retail, living with roommates, driving a car worth less than my watch. Her social media showed a woman who looked 5 years older, posting quotes about new beginnings and learning from mistakes. I looked once out of curiosity, felt nothing. I rebuilt my life methodically, renovated the penthouse room by room, erasing every trace of her. Started dating again, nothing serious, just reminders that options existed. I established new routines, new social circles, new spaces that had no memory of her. Within 6 months, people had mostly forgotten. Within a year, it was just another cautionary tale. I never contacted her again, never asked about her. She became what I'd promised, forgotten. A closed file, a solved problem requiring no further attention. 3 years later, I remarried. Catherine ran her own hedge fund and had her own postnup drafted before I suggested it. We built something based on complete transparency and zero tolerance for bullshit. She knew about Vanessa. I'd told her the whole story early because I believe in radical honesty after betrayal. Her response was simple: that's what happens when people underestimate consequences. We've been happy in that calm, stable way that comes from two people who've been through chaos and prefer boring reliability. Sometimes late at night, I think about that morning finding her iPad, the cold clarity that descended, the choice I made to go scorched earth instead of trying to work it out. I don't regret it. Not for a second. Vanessa got exactly what she earned, and I got my life back stronger and cleaner than before. People ask if I was too harsh, if I should have shown mercy. I smile and change the subject because there's no point explaining to someone who hasn't lived through systematic betrayal that mercy isn't always virtue. That sometimes the cruelest thing you can do is let someone avoid full consequences. Vanessa thought I needed her, that I'd fall apart without her. She was wrong about all of it. Wrong about me, wrong about her value, wrong about what would happen when she pushed too far. I won because I was smarter, colder, more prepared. I won because life isn't a fairy tale. It's a negotiation where the better strategist wins. And every morning when I wake up in my clean, honest, well-ordered life, I remember that when I was tested, when everything was threatened, I didn't break. I executed the plan perfectly. That's not cruelty. That's survival. That's what happens when you underestimate someone who treats life like chess and always thinks 15 moves ahead.